Basic psychology. The fight or flight response. The fight or flight response is an evolved survival mechanism that helps us react quickly to perceived threats or stressful situations.
Interesting, how does that work exactly?
When the body senses a threat, the amygdala, a part of the brain, sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus.
And what does the hypothalamus do?
The hypothalamus then activates the sympathetic nervous system, which triggers the release of hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Wow, so that's what causes the physical changes like a faster heartbeat and rapid breathing?
Exactly. These physiological changes prepare the body to either fight the threat or flee to safety, which is why it's called the fight or flight response.
I see, so it's an evolutionary adaptation to help us survive dangerous situations.
Precisely. In the modern world, we often experience this response even when there's no immediate physical threat, like during times of stress or anxiety. The role of adrenaline. When we're in a stressful situation, adrenaline circulates through the body, causing faster heart rate, increased breathing, muscle tension, and other physiological changes.
Wow, so it's like the body is preparing for action?
Exactly. Adrenaline also releases stored glucose to provide energy, and reduces the functioning of the digestive and immune systems to conserve energy.
That's fascinating. What happens after the stressful situation passes?
The parasympathetic nervous system then steps in to dampen down the stress response, lowering blood pressure, heart rate, and resuming digestion.
I see. But what if the stressor is ongoing and chronic?
Good question. In that case, the hypothalamus activates the HPA axis, which involves the release of hormones like cortisol to maintain the stress response.
Cortisol, huh? What's the role of that hormone?
Cortisol provides quick bursts of energy and reduces sensitivity to pain, but it can also impair cognitive functioning and suppress the immune system. Response to chronic stressors. The HPA axis stands for the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands.
What does each part of the HPA axis do?
Well, the hypothalamus releases a chemical called corticotrophin-releasing hormone, CRH, into the bloodstream.
And what happens then?
The CRH reaches the pituitary gland, causing it to produce and release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH.
Okay, and what does the ACTH do?
The ACTH is transported to the adrenal glands, where it stimulates the release of stress-related hormones, including cortisol.
I see, so cortisol is a key player in the body's response to chronic stress.
Exactly. Cortisol has both positive and negative effects, like a quick burst of energy, but also impaired cognitive performance. The fight or flight response evaluation. According to a study by Taylor et al., 2000, females tend to deal with stress using a tend and befriend response rather than fight or flight.
That's interesting. What does the tend and befriend response involve?
The tend and befriend response sees women engage in nurturing behavior and form protective alliances with other women to protect themselves and their children.
Wow, that's quite different from the traditional fight or flight response. Why do you think there's this difference?
Well, it's believed that due to their physical differences, women are less equipped than men to deal with threats by fighting or fleeing. Fleeing would also put their vulnerable children at risk.
I see, that makes sense. Fleeing would also put their vulnerable children at risk.
Yes, some studies have found a genetic basis. The SRY gene, found only in the male Y chromosome, is believed to be responsible for promoting aggression and the fight or flight response.
Fascinating. So the lack of this gene in women, along with hormones like estrogen and oxytocin, may be what leads to the tend and befriend response instead.
Exactly. Although the fight or flight response was adaptive in the past, it's now considered maladaptive in the modern world, as it can lead to health issues like high blood pressure and weakened immune systems. The fight or flight response is more due to socialization and gender expectations, rather than a genetic basis.
Interesting. Can you explain that a bit more?
Absolutely. Men are often socialized through media and role models to handle situations aggressively, while women are encouraged to rely on the support of others.
I see. So the link between men and aggression in the fight or flight response may not be entirely biological?
Exactly. A study by Von de Waans et al., 2012, found that during times of crisis, people can actually display cooperative behavior, regardless of gender.